Hi, my name is Chris Lymo. I am a father of one, a husband of one. I'm also a counselor, I'm a writer, I'm an addiction interventionist, and I'm also in recovery from alcoholism. And depending on who you ask, there are people who will say recovered or recovering. We'll get into it later. And I am a published author. I have written a book called My Side of the Street. And this is my story on Live Depression. Where did it start? I think it was 2003, 5 years into recovery from alcoholism. I hadn't had a drink for 5 years. And here I was wondering why my life was not working. I didn't have a job. I was living alone for the first time in my life, having been born a twin. And I was sober. So why wasn't my life great? I did not know. And I would share with my friends what was going on. Some of them came and said, "Oh, Chris, who do you think you are? Thinking that you're sharing all these things, especially about taking my own life," because thoughts of taking my own life. Because where I lived in a house with a one-bedroom flat in Eastlands, and people were asking me to rent to them their part of the sitting room because they felt that given that I was living alone, it was such a big house, and to me it was small. So I was wondering, why am I not even feeling grateful for the space I had? And why am I not feeling, in fact, that I wanted even a bigger space? I did not know what to do. I didn't accept to just talk, and I talked. Fortunately, about 4 years before that, I had discovered therapy. So I had gone through therapy because of some emotions that were coming up after I had stopped drinking. And I thought stopping to drink, everything would be sorted. But little did I realize that that's when some of the things I drank over, fears, and regrets, especially for lost opportunities, when they started coming up, I knew I could not drink again because I knew where it would take me back. But then, fortunately, a good friend of mine suggested therapy. So I had been going to therapy, and it's only in therapy that this counselor said, "Chris, I think you need to go you need a doctor, because where you are at, suicide is making sense." And it did. It really did, because I felt I was a waste of space. I felt, how can I not be grateful for the life I had? And as much as I tried, I couldn't feel better about what was going on in my life. I was admitted for depression for 10 days, and I got all sorts of treatment. I got medication, I got psychotherapy. They did some some ECT therapy where they put, sensors or some things under anesthesia, and then they shake the brain. So I had about 6 sessions of that ECT, because what happened later, now what I discovered later as I read up, is that because the brain is affected by depression, so they shake it up. The problem with that is that I came out with a loss of short-term memory. I could not remember many things that I was doing. Oh, also the other thing is that why the depression did not make sense. Having been sober 5 years, I was also practicing as a hairdresser. A guy hairdresser in Nairobi was a cool thing to be. But here I was, being a hairdresser, and I was feeling anything but cool. I was not feeling achieved, accomplished, and yet I was also, maybe in some aspects, I was not good at being, in the craft of hairdressing, but I was great in the salon. Because I'd get people to come in and they'd spend more money than they expected to spend, because that was my goal, to get people to leave feeling more beautiful than they did when they came in. So in a sense, it worked. So when this thing of depression crawled up on me, because in a sense that's what happened, it was also confusing to me. And I didn't know, I personally did not know it was depression. I just know I was not feeling good, and I did not understand why. And the other thing is that I knew I did not want to drink. Although I wrote a letter to God, I told him, now, if you want me to drink, you don't, usitumane, you bring the drink yourself. And identify yourself, and then we will drink it. So at least I had enough sobriety to have that kind of conversation with God. And the fact that I'm sitting here, he didn't come. Thankfully, he didn't come. He didn't show up he showed up differently. So what happened, I was hospitalized and put on medication and explained, what that kind of medication did. Now, the problem was, at that time, is that I took the medication for another about 6 years. But it got so expensive, and then towards the end of the 6 years, I had lost my job, and I could not afford the medication anymore. And at that time, it was costing about 200 bob a day, and I couldn't. So I was slipping back, the feelings of dejection, the feeling, because first of all, I had lost a job. I'm sober. I'm not supposed to lose a job. So I felt bad because I thought I'm not supposed to lose a job, because I thought I was special and different. Why am I the one losing a job? But the feelings were bad. The feelings were deep. And the feelings were, how can I be sober and not accomplished? And well, there was a time in recovery that I had started getting, good jobs, and before this story might go back and forth, but I started getting good jobs with a lot of money, and I did not know how to handle this money, and I knew one of the things I could not do is drink. So I'd give a lot of it away. I'd eat a lot out, like 5 meals a day in a restaurant, and take people with me. So that is a thing that now I tie even for my recovery from alcoholism, because what I discovered is that when I sobered up, I was 27 and I had zero life skills. And I was telling myself at 27 I should actually know how to cope with life. But I didn't. And I did not know, especially as a Kenyan African man, that it was okay, one, to ask for help. It was to admit that I did not know how to, minimal things, like even dating. I was 27, at 28 I was single, and I did not know what people do in a date, especially where it's alcohol free. So those are some of the things when I look back and I think, yeah, those ones, those could have been the trigger, some of the triggers for my depression. In the course of my treatment for depression, with the therapy, consistent therapy, I got a lot of understanding about why I could possibly have been depressed. Yes, there was a lot of background stuff. There was a lot of societal community stuff, because being a Kenyan African man, there was a certain assumption I had that a man should be, and the thing is, I was not. That perhaps I should have, there's a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rule. One wife, 2 kids, 3-bedroomed house with a 4-wheel drive on a 5-acre plot, or something to that effect. I had 0. So I felt unaccomplished. And the older I was getting, I knew the less chances of being accomplished. But you see, that's the equation I had given myself, the worldly equation. And it doesn't, human beings don't operate like that. So what, now getting depressed was in service of all that. I remember, so I started going to a church after that, and I was very surprised by this relationship to church, because I thought, I lived with the experience that church meant I can only go when I'm good, with a Sunday best, where we say Sunday, it's like you have to look okay to be in church. So I joined this particular church where they said, come as you are. I said, no, you're lying. You can't come. No, you guys, it doesn't happen like that. That's not church. So I went, and it was quite interesting, because I got into this church and there were opportunities, several opportunities to serve, and to serve authentically. I did not need the skills, I did not need training to qualify for this service position that I got. And I really loved being in that church. I really loved it, and I lived for it. In fact, my friends who would invite me to their churches on a Sunday, I tell them, sorry, unless you invite me on any other day except Sunday, I'm not coming, because I had done more church in my life in that time than in my whole adult life. In fact, my whole life put together, because we didn't really grow in church was occasional. It wasn't every Sunday thing. But the depressive feelings still came in. They were still there, because I lived now for Sunday. And I dreaded Monday to Saturday, because there was no experience of this kind of serving. I'd get into service positions that they call them leadership, but for me it was service. And one time, and this is why I say I don't know how that depression went, but at one time, this guy called Gabriel, we're in a the monthly end of month service. So Gabriel comes and he calls me out and he says, I've been told to pray for you. And I don't know what it's about. So he did, we prayed, and I kid you not, the depression was lifted. I didn't need meds, I did not feel sad. So life became expansive. I started, I finished my book, the book I authored, I finished, it came out. I started getting, kind of a public persona. Now, and that's why I started this story in the middle, because you see, I did not know myself as a public persona. I grew up as an only boy in a single parent home with lots of ladies, 2 sisters, the house, house help, my mom. So it was kind of difficult learning myself as a guy because there was no brothers, my cousins, yes, but I didn't know some of these conversations. It's only in this church space that I started learning about what it means to be a guy, what it means to be a man. And I think the feelings started coming back and saying, oh dear, this feels like a huge responsibility. And then the feelings of the regret and shame started coming back. And I did not know what to do with them. In the meantime, maybe the church was growing and it was becoming more bureaucratic, or just perhaps, I don't know about the church, but it stopped making, I stopped going. But remember, I'm still sober. I'm still working on myself. I still do therapy. For me, therapy is like servicing a car. Regardless of whether it's KA what, KB something, KC whatever, that a car needs to be serviced every 5,000 kilometers. The older it is, in fact, even maybe in fewer kilometers. So for me, I am grateful that I discovered therapy, and it's now a non-negotiable part of my life. Yes, it's required in my training, it's required in my field as a counselor, I'm required to go, but I don't go because it's required. For me, it's just, it's an honor and it's a privilege to have somebody sit there and listen to me for me, and to get me, to try and attempt to get into my world and help me from there, rather than help me from that space. So for me, therapy is a gift to humanity, I must say, and that's what I also try to do as a therapist. But the depression came back. It came back, and it was intriguing because now I did not know what to do. Fortunately, in therapy, the therapist picked it up and said, "Look, Chris, I can't continue until you go see your doctor again." And when I think back, because that was this year in 2020 when I was diagnosed, and I've been on medication for about the past 7 months, and we're in November now, since March. But when I look back, it started when, part of the triggers was maybe even way back 7 years ago. We were co-parenting my son, and he moved in with me. He was staying with his mom, and so he moved in with me. And whereas up to that point I was a Sunday daddy, the fun, his buddy, his Sunday buddy and what have you. So when he moved, you can't be a buddy for 7 days, and because in their chores, there's school, and I realized, like there are times I'd ask him, do you want to eat today? I think he looked at me and said, what kind of question is that? I'm 13, I need to eat. But I got, he was in standard 8, and what I'd do, and then at that same time, I had moved from a place I had stayed in for 20 years. I had moved so that he can be closer, we can be close with the same, where his school was, because we couldn't change him in school. And I felt it was such an enormous responsibility. And then I lost my job. And they say the main stressors in a human being's life is, losing work, losing somebody, you know, a significant other, or even moving house or moving even towns can maybe a trigger. Now, so I had all these significant changes happen in my life, and I did not know how to handle. So there are times, you know, I would escort him when he's going to school, and I dress up as if I'm going to town, you know, to work, and I just go back home, enter the blanket, and sleep until 3 p.m. And you know, because it was so hard work, because he would come. So because I'd wake up because I didn't want to see him to see me this way. He knew it wasn't an 8 to 5, but then I would now wake up and now preparing food and prepared to be present. And I was wondering whether this was a good decision, you know, to have moved in with him. And I was really getting scared for him, because one of the other things I did in my depression was project some of these things, you know, some of the things I wanted. You know, like later he went, you know, he did his standard 8 and he did very well. He got into a boarding school, but now when he came the first term, he wouldn't do his homework. And I was freaking out, because I know what not doing my homework in 4th form did to me, because I had failed. I had failed my O levels, and I didn't want this for him. And I knew the hard work that it took, because you see those results, unless you even go back to school, they don't change, you know, unless you go and repeat. And I did a GCSE, and I still, you know, distance learning, and did do well. So I didn't want this for him. So one of the things I started doing was beating him in his 14, and he could feel that this was unjust. This kind of beating did not fit the injustice. And yes, because now I knew I'm not supposed to do this, I'd call, you know, my coaches or my counselor or my doctor and say, look, I just beat my son and I don't want to do this. And I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And at times they didn't know what to do either. But I think, in a sense, just being present enough to call. But I saw I was damaging my son, and I did not know what to do. And I didn't have work. And I look back, I say that's where the depression started, you know, this second cycle. Maybe somebody's asking, Kwani, prayers don't work? I think they do. I mean, the other one was lifted. So I don't know why it came back. I don't know. You know, that maybe let's ask the person who answers prayers. But I was worried. I started getting worried about these beatings and getting him to wash dishes. And I'm complaining to my friends, why can't, you know, I'm training him to wash dishes. And I was asked, but do you like washing dishes? I didn't, and I don't, you know. Now, and I could see I was damaging this boy, and I was getting afraid. Remember, you know, the thoughts and feelings now. Here I was feeling bad about myself, but now I'm also feeling bad about what I'm doing to my son, and I did not know what to do. I absolutely do not know what to do. So I lived with that thought, just trying to work harder, to do more, in the meantime, I met, you know, somebody wonderful, and we got married. You know, it was miraculous. You know, I've been married now in, you know, just about 5.5 years, and it's amazing. You know, I have this great understanding wife. She gets me, you know, and I think it's so important. It sounds so selfish and whatever, but it was important to be gotten. For me, it's to just be heard and to be gotten, and for me, that is helping the healing process. And now we have a restored relationship with my son. Still a work in progress, because I don't, you know, I can only find out from him so much about what he feels about that time. I talk about what I did. And the therapist did all sorts of assessments, you know, where you're answering 300 questions, you're drawing houses, you're drawing things. And she said, look, there's a common theme here. There's a common theme of death. There's a common theme of dark. There's a common theme of self-hate. There's a common theme of trying to do so much to compensate for what you're feeling, what you're thinking, and what you're doing, and it's not working. So I need you to see a doctor. Otherwise, we're not going to continue with the therapy. And for me, she was an angel. She is an angel, because I was glad that she was open enough and bold enough to tell me to do that. And I went to see the doctor, and I just said exactly what I was feeling, and the doctor said, here, I can hear, I can see, I can feel that you're depressed. So I'm on medication. But I'm also clear that the medication is, an access to, so the therapy now is more useful. The therapy, I feel, the things we're talking about in therapy are helping me even look forward to producing great results. Because what happens in my depression is that I tell myself I'm useless, and very many, curse words and what have you. But now I'm looking forward to a healed Chris. I'm looking forward to a freed Chris, and life is looking brighter. So that even during this time of the pandemic, what it has done is help me get in touch, because my son was home. He's in uni now. He's in second year in university. So and to live with him, and then even with my wife, and just generally my community. So even the lived experience has helped me even become a better, even a therapy, because now people can come to me and I know I may not necessarily have the answers, and I'm not even supposed to really, but I can get human suffering, I have a kind of tangible relationship to love, to dignity, and now for me there's no shame about being, living with depression. My mind quietened, because again, the things I was dealing with in this time, the main triggers was seeing men, if I may just, men as in, male gender, male adults, just misusing their roles and their responsibilities, and take advantage, and not, one, be held accountable, two, not admit. And that confused me, because here I am, I'm male, I'm a guy, I've got a home, I'm hoping to, and that really confused me. And what I discovered this time around, the trigger for the depression, was really my relationship with God. And I thought it has, because we're allowed, especially in this part of the world where we say we are 80% of Christians. I don't know whether we are really, but that's a story for another day. So I was very confused about what would it take to be a righteous man? What does it take to be a loving man? What does it take to be a gentle man? What does it take to be, helpful or loving, or that kind of thing? And I thought, in my depression, I thought you can only be one way, where you are making lots of money, you're driving big cars, and you have many girlfriends, and I'm neither. I'm not any of that. And now I'm just accepting the brokenness, the brokenness in my soul, and just asking now God to guide me only way He knows how, devoid of, maybe rituals and religion. And of course, because the pandemic helped in terms of, now I was not taking off from church because church was closed, So I was with myself. And so it's a real thing, and yes, I'm in touch with a lot of men who are, they're showing depression, signs of depression. And what we do, it's simply things like even today, this morning, I got a call from a guy, and I asked him whether, he said he had come, he's a lecturer, he had come from class, he was feeling bad, and I asked him, have you eaten? He said no. So I asked him, okay, you need to eat, then we'll talk later. So that at least from the biological aspect, he has gotten the right thing. And to him, in fact, he was so thrilled. He said, that's it for now. I said, yeah, let's talk in about another 6 hours or something. Those are some of the things, and they're available. And the kind of meal he told me, he was not going to do the mandazi and chai, he was going to do galia. So I told him, yeah, put lots of vegetables, and your proteins on the plate, and then reduce the size of the carbs, and pole will do that. Then exercise. I get afraid of going to the gym, because I imagine I'm the biggest person in the gym, not biggest, fattest, and most unfit. But gyms are for those kind of people. The fittest go to Olympics. The ones who are not go to the gym, So depression is not one single thing. Yes, now I don't, I can tell myself. In fact, there are times that I can tell, today I'm not feeling okay. So my wife and I have this thing where I can say what's going on and we can choose what to do. There are times I'll just go for a walk because there's no right place to get to. So, but because now the medication and the therapy are also helping, and then just an understanding, loving person in my life. So I mean, I didn't want to tell my mom. My mom will freak out when I tell her depression. But that's what most people think. That they think that if I say I'm depressed, I'm thinking of killing myself or taking my own life. And that's not it. I was telling them that it's a normal thing in a broken world. It's a normal condition in a broken world. Illnesses are normal. That's why we have hospitals. Illnesses, it's just that we may not like them. They are not comfortable. I don't know how next year will look, what post-COVID will look like. But right now, I just feel so free, and I also need somebody to understand me even when I'm feeling free, not just when I'm feeling depressed or low. And like I said, the most important, one of the most important relationships I'm having is with my son. We are relearning or unlearning our relationship from before. And I have made my amends. I said, I am really, truly sorry for the things I did, for killing your spirit, for exasperating your soul, which we are told in the scripture, parents, do not exasperate your children. And I said, I'm sorry, and I will do better. I'll try and do better. And in my marriage, the same thing. I get the love and my wife talks about even work. Even again, there's this thing. There's this narrative about men and providing, and we only think it must be financial. The way it comes out. So you find that men who are not providing financially are thinking they're not enough. Now, provision is, in fact, financial is one small aspect about being a man and being a husband and being a father. The main thing, I believe, is being present and available. Yeah. There are things I do that my wife tells me, and I can only hear it from her because she says, when you take the car to the garage, I can't pay for that service. Because before we used to have this mechanic would make, it was so expensive. So I go, and for me, I thought, because I don't have a physics mind and what have you, I don't know parts. Nowadays I know, I know prices of, I know stabilizer link, I know all these gaskets and this kind of thing and bushes. I know about that, but because what I know now about what work is love made visible. I heard this from my wife. Love made visible. So where does that talk about money? Because we all have that opportunity to give and to receive love. So I'm here living life free at home. Thank you.